Hello, hello. Okay. The microphone's just for show and also the camera. So, yeah, this is good. Can you guys hear me? Nice. All right. Um, Welcome. This is a workshop, if you didn't already know, on female involvement in the FRC community. I did a research study this season about female involvement in the gender demographic of my region. So I have a lot of the statistics on that, and then what it means and those implications, and then next steps. So yeah, welcome to the workshop. A little background. My name's Addie. I'm from Tacoma, Washington, the state. I never have to say that except for robotics competitions. That's all right. I'm a junior. On the soda box. We're from the School of the Arts, so right away we started kind of as like, wouldn't it be cool if that art school actually did really well in a robotics society? So like STEAM work with all that arts in it, we're thriving in this community for sure. It's our 10th year anniversary, which is kind of fun as well. So as a junior and part of the leadership team, I wanted to step out and do something really fun. And this was a really good way for me to connect with other teams as well. And so I did. Yeah. So those are all the things. You can just see them. Ask questions anytime. This is a small enough group that if you have questions, for sure, ask them. We did that one. So basically, there's 158 teams in the Pacific Northwest district. And this is the first year of the survey, and I already got 56 of the teams to respond, which is over 1/3, which is pretty good. In the future, I hope other teams will continue to respond to make the data sample even bigger. But yeah, this data is pretty solid. And it was also the gender demographics of their 2016 Stronghold teams. And so it might be different this year, and it might be different last year. This was only like a 1-year slot. So it's hard to see the change that comes from that. Reasons, this is kind of an odd microphone. I might not use it. What do you guys think? Yes, no? Yes. Okay, cool. Anyway, so because this was the first year of the survey, it's hard to see the change that comes from the growth of the FRC community, but I did the survey because there wasn't anything public on in the future, we're going to continue to do this survey, and we can see that growth, which is really cool. This is the first layer, the percent of girls on teams. I just asked that right away, and here's that curve for you. So as you can see, there's the percent of girls, that's a percentage on the bottom, and then a frequency of teams. So there were 2 teams that responded that didn't have any girls on them. There's a curve, 1 team with 50% girls, and 1 all-girls team with a mean of 30%. And when I saw this initially, I was kind of disappointed, but I kind of realized that this was the FRC community that I had been in for over 2 years. And when I talked to Kevin Ross, he said, this shows change already. The curve 5-10 years ago was way pushed this way. And so even the 30% was something. And I agree with that. And so that kind of broadened my vision as well of what the FRC community looks like. But anyway, yeah, it was interesting to see in my region. So in different districts, it might be different. But yeah, for the Pacific Northwest, it was 30%. Yeah. Yes. I am. There is a link to it on my brochure, and I have a paper copy right there, so you can get it at the end. Yeah, for sure. But the interesting part also about this bell curve is there really was only 1 team that responded with 50% girls, and that's where like my team is about 43%. There were no teams with 64, 74, 80% girls, and that's something that I think really needs to change in the FRC community, especially in my district, and that's what I'm striving for. Another way to look at this data is for numbers. So that was percentages, but if you just look at total number of youth, the mean was about 26 team members, whereas the mean number of girls was only 8. So you can see where that like 30% comes from. Yeah. Yeah, pretty good. Oh, in terms of sub-teams, here's kind of the layout of that. Again, not surprisingly to me, but it's good information to know because a lot of this is, before all this data came out, was just speculation. Like, are girls underrepresented in STEM fields? Are girls more inclined? Are they, just where are they existing, I guess? And so that first bar is the mean percent, that 30% average that you saw, and then the other ones right there, build, programming, drive, etc. The drive one's interesting because on a stronghold team you have 4 drivers and the average was 24% girls. So that's just slightly under 1 girl per drive team. So for every one that had 2 girls, there was one with 0 girls, and it just went more from there. So yeah. In media, outreach, fundraising, and leadership, girls were still underrepresented, but less so. And that's, of course, it would be very surprising if there was more than 50% girls in those fields because they're only at 30% average. But it is interesting to know that in those sub-teams, they're slightly overrepresented for their average. And then in programming, that was the least, and that was 19%. And we'll get into that one a little bit later because that one's pretty interesting. But yeah. Another thing I found was that in terms of sub-teams and overall, this data didn't change for big teams or small teams. And so here's kind of the breakdown. Like if the average team size is 26, this was a good way to break it down in half. So 5 to 20 team members and 24 to 67 team members. But the sub-team data looks about the same. It might look a little different, but it's all not significant at all. And so that tells you that whether or not you have a big team or a small team or somewhere in the between, all of this data, at least in the Pacific Northwest region, really applied to the gender demographics. The one that was significant actually was leadership, which is kind of interesting. And what I am inferring from that is that with teams that are bigger in size and just have more a mass of girls, just more numbers, they might be more represented in the leadership team just because there's more of them. Yeah. So, but it definitely didn't change by size for that. Yeah. And then those were the questions that I asked for members, so female members. But I also asked questions about mentors. And so a little bit about that. This does not look like a curve, which is very interesting to me. But the mean percent of female mentors was 21%, which is just a little more than 1 in 5. Yeah. 14 teams out of 56 had 0 female mentors. 1 team had 60%, and then the other teams had somewhere in between there, again with the mean being 21%. Yeah. Those 14 teams with 0 female mentors, I think is something that I really want to change in next year and try to get at least 1 female mentor on every team, just to grow that culture. I think it's hard for some teams, if they don't have any female mentors, to bring in female mentors. But if there's going to hopefully to grow a community of female members as well as female mentors would be really strong. So yeah. And then the other way to look at it is numbers. Again, here's where you can see more of a curve in this female mentor number area. So out of an average of like 7.4 mentors per team, there was an average of only 1.7 female mentors. So you can see where that 1/5 comes in. Yeah, that curve, as you kind of see, is that 0 female mentors, and that goes up. There's 1 team with 6 female mentors, but that was it. So out of that 7 average, yeah, there was no teams with more than 6 female mentors, which is just interesting. The first thing that I just want to make with this data is just make it available to other teams. So I definitely have a lot of stuff on how we can make changes to bring more female members and female mentors, but the first step in my mind was just to make all of this information public and just let people see it. And you guys can bring it to your own teams and your own regions and do something with it as well. Yeah. Do you have a question? It's all mentors on a team. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And I asked in a different way than I should have about what mentors were on each sub team, and I said it was a checkbox kind of a thing, and I said, where are your female mentors? And it was build, programming, drive, leadership, etc. And I checked a box, and what I found was, again, it was about this 1/5 ratio. It didn't actually change that much, but yeah, I had a thing about that. But yes, so I did ask that, and I'm going to ask it in a different way next year to make sure that I know if there's 2 female mentors on a drive team, and make sure I have that information. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I would love to. Yeah, and I'd love to work with your team and your region. I can definitely help you do this survey, but if you want to take it on as, and so we have more of a network of people doing surveys. That's my goal because I'm a junior right now and I'm going to graduate eventually. And though I plan to be connected to this survey for a long while, I want other teams to take it on and other of my members to take it on as well. Yeah. On our team, we have the Jedi Padawan system from Star Wars, so I'm like, I can be a Jedi for this survey and have other people take it on. Yeah. In terms of the impact that female mentors had on female members, that was something that I think I assumed would be correlated, and a lot of other people assumed would be correlated. But what my data showed is that it wasn't. That whether you had 0, 1, 2, or 3 to 6 female mentors on your team, the percent of girls did not change. And even though you can see a little discrepancies, it's totally not significant at all. And this may be because exactly what you see, it's not correlated. But it might also be because there's only slightly more than 1/5 of female mentors on teams. If there was an actually like 50-50 female mentors and male mentors, this might look a lot different, and we just don't know. And so there might just not be enough female mentors to make an impact. And so that's something moving forward I'm gonna continue to look for. But we don't know. It might not be correlated, and that's one of those interesting things that I did find. And so when trying to make more successful strategies for teams to recruit female girls and high schoolers, getting more female mentors on your team may not be the best way to go. There might be a different answer. Yeah.
Did you by chance graph mean percent girls against mean percent female mentors?
Yes. So I did. It looks a lot like this. Yeah. It's not correlated. Yeah. But there's also not more than 60% female mentors on a team, so that's hard to see as well. But yeah. Um, I'm not really sure. I would hope so. I would hope that that's like a sustainable strategy, but I don't know. I think it's a good goal to reach for, though, to have more female mentors be represented in the FRC community, if only to do that, if only to have more female mentors, even if it didn't correlate. So I think it will, but I'm just not sure, yeah, at this point. Yeah. Ooh, yes. We can get to that. I have like 2 more slides. Yes. Yeah. Hmm. Right. I have a little stuff on that. Yeah, I have a little bit. It's hard to quantify that because it's sometimes different for every team. But I know just like for female mentors, a lot of it's I think it's a kind of a common knowledge or a common assumption that that will bring in more female members. Same kind of thing, if you have female members on your team, if you've grown that culture, it's easy to sustain that culture. And so I have a little bit of data on that, but I also believe that that's true. And in future surveys, yeah, I'm going to try to quantify that more, and so teams can give me better feedback on it. Yeah. Yeah, one more question. Right. Right. Um, yeah, I can talk about that a little more later, but one of the things we're trying to do in my district is start mentor trainings. And so the plan is to have 9 trainings throughout next season, throughout the district, so Washington, Oregon, and Alaska, and bring in mentors. And when I say mentors, again, it's that like 79% men and 21% women kind of demographic. And I think that would be very helpful for a student leader or someone else to share this data, but also do some training for that, because I've heard many stories like that as well, and I'd love to make those less and less common. Yeah. Um, yeah, one more question, and then I'm going to move on. Sure. That Sure. The mentor statistics that I had didn't ask for any sort of degree. I know that on my team, some of my mentors are teachers, some of them are from industry, some of them are alumni, some of our parents that are connected to industry, but maybe not directly. And so in the future, I can look for some level of education and commitment to industry versus not. That would be an interesting statistic to find out. But I know when I say mentors, it's often those people that you described, regardless of degree, that invest in a team. Yeah. Okay. So, in conclusion, the female mentor on percent of girls on a whole was not correlated. However, and also it wasn't on a lot of these sub-teams, so I asked where the mentors were in terms of build and drive and fundraising, and on all those sub-teams, it wasn't correlated with the percent of girls on those sub-teams. However, it was correlated in programming. The programming statistic, if you'll recall, is 19% girls average, which is less than 1 in 5. And what I found was that if teams that had 0, 1, or 2 female mentors, it was about that. It's that 17%. But to have 3 to 6 female mentors, it went up to like 44% average girl programmers. And so that's where having female programming mentors can grow that culture. Yeah. And so I was just a little bit heartbroken when that the female mentors weren't correlated with percent females on a team. But this is the statistic that I'm really pushing. So this was my big finding, I guess, on my survey as a whole, just in this first year. Yeah, yeah. That's the students. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yep. Mm-hmm. And this is just female mentors on a whole. So there's no teams with more than 6 female mentors. But just in numbers, if you had more than 3 or more female mentors, on average, the percent girls on programming went way up, which means that even if there were a couple teams that it wasn't effective, there were more teams that it was super effective, and there was more than 50% girls. Yeah. And even better, if you had a female programming mentor, it went up to 49%. female programmers, high schoolers, which is almost half. We're so close to half, guys. So close. Out of those 56 teams, there were 48 without a female programming mentor, which is huge. I mean, that's a huge demographic of teams that could use a female programming mentor. Because these 8 teams that did have a female programming mentor, that's that 49% female programmers. And if you have a culture of female programming mentors and female programmers, it's, again, easier to sustain that culture. And so that's where having a female programming mentor can start that culture on your programming team. Yeah. Who has girls on their programming team? Because it's kind of interesting. My team does, but I'm going to be honest, this is the first year that we have. In my freshman year, I wanted to be on programming, but I was the only girl, and they were like, stay on programming. You're the only girl on programming. We're like 7 years old, and we've never had a girl on programming. And though there were some really great female leaders on my team, none of them were in the programming sub-team, and we didn't have a female programming mentor. And so I, for whatever reason, decided that wasn't my thing, and I went to soldering and wiring, which was really my passion. And so I found my niche on First Robotics, but unfortunately, I was dissuaded from programming. And looking at it in this light, it is easy to see how not having female leaders would impact that decision and make choices for me that I didn't really want to. Yeah, but now our programming team is half girls, which is really wonderful. And so we're making strides, and it's really wonderful for our team if we have a really great demographic to help other teams as well, and bring in and be like sister teams. So that's also one of my dreams for the coming years. Yeah. So now I have a question for you all. What do your teams do to recruit girls? It's an interesting question because at first some people are like, oh, I don't really know, but often there is something. Can anyone think of a way that you recruit girls? Yeah. Okay. Mhm. Mhm. Right. Okay. Yeah, so female mentors. Yeah. Yeah. Right, so you do outreach to girls. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you do all girls activities. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah. Okay, nice. More outreach. Yeah. Mhm. Sure. So like all girls activities. Yeah. Build like a girl. Nice. That's really cool. Yeah. Mhm. That sounds delicious. Sure. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. For sure.
One thing we do that's more indirect is run workshops for anyone in the school during lunch to
Mhm.
introduce them to the school's makerspace.
Mhm.
And we use that later in some period.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, those are some. Oh yeah. One more. Okay. That's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Wonderful. It's not over yet, kids. Stay here. All right. Yeah, so those are some really wonderful things. It's also a lot of what other teams said. So in terms of I believe the question was, what does your team do in terms of events or techniques or strategies to recruit girls? And it was an open-ended question, so teams just like wrote in whatever they did. And I broke it into two categories so you can kind of see some relations. So the average was 30% girls. So the 36 teams with less than 30% girls it's the bottom category, and then the 30 to 50% girls was the top category. Again, there's one team that's an all-girls school, but it's from an all-girls school, so it's an all-girls team, and then one team with 50%. So you can see that word-of-mouth recruitment and outreach to classrooms, that's kind of what you were saying with your makerspace and whatnot. It's really great. I don't want to dissuade you at all from doing those because they're very good. But what my research showed was that the same amount of teams said that for the different percentages, so it didn't impact the percent of girls on their team. Yeah, and so that's where, again, great ways to reach out, but in terms of finding successful strategies to bring in girls, that may not be our first priority. In terms of so then the ones after that are ones that might be more impactful. There were 3 teams that had more than 30% girls that said they had female leaders as role models. So girls on their leadership team, girls that were really involved with FIRST that brought in other girls. There were only 3 teams that said that, but all 3 of those teams had more than 30% girls. They were above the average. In terms of, we have, in the Pacific Northwest, we have 2 competitions called Girls' Generation. It's a preseason event where girls get to experience being drivers and pit crew and all of those facets of FIRST Robotics competitions in the preseason. And so our team doesn't, we love our robot and we've already worked on it a lot, and so we often switch out drivers, switch out the pit crew, really to give all of our girls like the opportunity to be in FIRST Robotics. And so in that competition, there were 9 of those teams that it referenced the Girls' Gen competition, and 7 of them had more than the average girls. And so going to a competition like that, and just getting your girls involved. You might not have one in your district. You could start one, but doing the real FIRST Robotics, often the competition, which is really inspiring, but doing it before even the build season to get your team and your girls really involved in what FIRST means. Those all-girls activities that some people mentioned, like their ice cream social, also were successful in being above the average percent of girls. Yeah, and then those that left it blank or said, we don't do anything, there were 6 teams in the over 30% and then 10 teams in the under 30%. Yeah, yeah. As far as I know, one of the PNW teams started the Girls' Gen competitions, and yeah, it was chickens. Yeah, they're fabulous. They're fabulous. But yeah, I actually don't know if it's in any of the other districts, but it's definitely
Not yet.
not yet. Yeah, it's an incredible resource that if you're really interested in doing that for your team.
What, just give me 1 minute. What is it? So Girls' Gen is an off-season event that we do in October, and the deal is only girls get to drive, and only girls get to be on the pits. Guys can be in the pits, but the reality is these things for girls, not only for girls on the team as a recruiting tool, so we invite students, whoever wants to come, any girl can come, and even if they don't have a team, come on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually maybe 24 teams, and it's a 1-day event. And we bring in the official field, bring in and run it. It's an FRC event on 1 day. And so if you all are either in districts or
Yeah, no, for sure. If your district is interested in doing that, definitely stick around afterwards because I can provide you with some resources. Asking Kevin Ross. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Did you have a question, by the way? Yeah. Right. It's a question I've thought about a lot and has come up in previous workshops. I think there's all boys teams that exist in First Robotics, and there should be all girls teams that exist in First Robotics for sure. To have that, whether it's from private or public schools or whatnot, is really strong. But in terms of having, it's almost to me, it's a moral question. It's if you have all girl teams um, or all girls activities and do that kind of separation, is that good for preparing girls for the workforce? Which I think the climate of co-ed FRC teams is much more realistic to the climate of the real industry. And so um, I don't know the answer to that, basically, but I've definitely been pondering it a lot, and I don't have a whole lot of insight. Someone had said that having all girls teams and all girls activities isn't taking away from anything else. It's just adding. It's just having more girls, as you were saying, there's just more girl numbers, which is a plus. And so, yeah, I don't have the answer for that, but I welcome any insight because it's a really big question in my mind. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And so we go from the survey and the past to what are we going to do next, right? In terms of taking action, what are we going to do with these? Um, my first kind of goal was to share these statistics with as many people as I can, and have them share with their teams and them share with their coworkers and whatnot. But I believe there's a woman named Erin McCullen in the first WA, and she said, you know, people are going to get pretty bored with sharing stuff pretty quickly. And so we want to do more than just share the statistics, right? We want to take some action. And that's where there's this umbrella term that we have come up with and has existed for a couple of years, but I think can be a much more integral part of my district and other districts called the Girls First Initiative. It's an initiative that was started 3 years ago simply to get more girls in First Robotics. And so what that meant for a few years ago was doing a conference that was free to have girls meet women in the industry. It meant working with Girl Scouts to try to find some data, kind of like me, but working with Girl Scouts to find that, to find where we are in terms of girls. But after that, that's it. That was what was the Girls Gen Initiative all about. And so I'm bringing it back as kind of an umbrella term for this research, for all the action other teams are taking. And I hope to make it more of an integral part of just what FIRST is, to have a Girls First initiative that other teams, as well as mine, do activities and do many events just under the Girls First initiative, just to bring in more girls. And I'd love to grow it nationwide and worldwide. So, I have a sign-up sheet right here. If by the end of the conference you're interested in learning more about the Girls First Initiative and being connected to a network of girls like me and teams like mine to just grow FIRST and grow the number and percent of girls in FIRST, please sign up. I'd love to get in contact with you more. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not. Do you want to talk to me later? Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Okay, yeah. Sure. Yeah. And those are the wonderful resources that, yeah, I. This is wonderful. Anyway, yeah, I talked about the trainings for mentors a little bit as well. I think it's going to be really useful in my district to have male mentor advocates for first teams. There is a lot of value in having female mentors, but if in general mentors can bring girls up and have a culture of putting girls in leadership positions, giving girls jobs, I think that in a male-dominated industry, it's needed for mentors to have this training and to really connect with high schoolers in this way that's going to bring them up in a very positive way. And also just to spread awareness as well of the underrepresentation of girls in FIRST Robotics, because it is very real. Yeah, and that's where my statistics can provide a baseline as well for the underrepresentation to really share with mentors, as well as for future surveys. So if your team is interested in doing a survey in your region, please come talk to me afterwards because I would love to continue to do that. Yeah. I know we're definitely not out of time, and I kind of planned for it, so no one worry. But do you have any other action steps that you can think of? Yeah. Mhm. Sure. Mhm. Sure. Yeah, I've definitely seen on the build sub team, sometimes on my team, we have a pretty good gender demographic of girls and guys on my sub team, on the build sub team, but on my team. But sometimes what I've realized is in the pit or in the last few days of build season, there's sometimes surrounding the robot is a lot of guys, and somehow the girls are kind of on the outskirts. And while that might not be an empirical truth or anything close to it, I think there is some truth in that girls on these STEM subteams especially should be more integrated in those subteams. Yeah, and I think that's what maybe some bias training is going to do, just to spread awareness of the work still needed to create that gender equality. Yeah, and that way, if it comes from the top down as well, there's something about a groundswell of us becoming a community and like bringing awareness, but there's also something about having longevity of mentors who can guide female members and male members as well, to bring them up in a more equal and just wonderful community because girls are needed. Yeah.
So I'm very interested in that, and I know that she is too. Sally's from first. She's kind of so he works on this sort of stuff. So what you're talking about is adding more of a almost a qualitative data set to the quantitative one that you
Yeah.
and I in the first big self-accomplishment measure, and so yay, I think we should try and do that. How to measure it qualitatively is tough and exciting. So we should do this.
Wonderful. Thank you. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Hmm. Well, thank you. Yeah. And it's so wonderful because I know that First is committed to having more girls in the community. And this survey came from, I believe, just a lack of communication. And just like when I look for these things, I have yet to connect with you, and I have yet to find the places in First that are doing this work. And so, yeah, I'm just adding. It's just wonderful. Yeah.
So
Cool.
I'll add a little bit of historical that's most of you don't know who I am. My name is Peter Ross. I'm the chairman of the Pacific Northwest District.
Yeah.
And so the Girls First Initiative, we started about 3 or 4 years ago. And I'll be honest with you, uh, we were floored at how quickly the numbers jumped just by us talking about it. Like we gained about 3 percentage points. So we went from about 24 to 20, well, 24 to about 28%, almost 28%, just in the first year, just by actually pointing out that this is something that needs to be addressed. And so, for all of you from different regions, you can probably make a pretty big impact by just bringing this topic up with the leader teams in your community and just getting the conversation started. And you'll be surprised what the impact is once we get. We were floored that after 1 year of just basically doing the very basic strategies that
Right.
she had shown on the chart, we gained almost, well, about 3%.
Right. And that's where this graph only shows 1 year, but I have no idea what the next year's graph's going to look like. Is it going to move none? Is it going to go back? Is it going to go up 5%? I don't even know. So it's just going to be very interesting as we move forward to see what kind of impact that this makes. Yeah.
And things are improving because I do have history. In 2002, we had 4% girls participation, and it has been on a fairly steady increase ever since. Uh, but in the years since about 2000 well, it's actually about time SOTA started, about 2009, 2010. It's taken a really lovely upward slope. So I think it's a mass problem, right? Once we get a critical mass of girls involved, it starts to snowball, and so
Yeah.
we're headed for 51.
Yes, we are. That's true. Yeah.
Yes, actually, yeah, a little bit. In our area, which is so in our area, we're at about 34% girl participation in FLL, and about 32 and a half on FKC. And we're just, oh
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And one of the other great things about having mentor trainings is that some of our mentors are teachers. And so, and often they're teachers of physics. And we have some like nature walk teachers, which is so cool. They just have and a massive knowledge, but just teachers that are in our schools that can help in the robotics teams, but also just in their classrooms, have that STEM mindset for girls. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
What I saw in your statistics, because I kind of reverse engineer everything in life. Boys are underrepresented in media fundraising and outreach, right?
No.
No.
No, there's and so in media is the largest is the 40%.
For boys.
For boys would be 60% if there's like two
Well, I
genders.
was just thinking, what if we, as a backwards way into promoting this, try to program or try to get boys to try out more of working in those support sides of the team that
Right.
they don't generally first get attracted to.
Sure.
So that maybe some role swapping and say, this year, if you've already been on the programming or drive team or build, you should go over and try working on these other departments, and then maybe that will free up some opportunities for girls to be junior and move into senior positions
Yeah.
on the
I
side.
think that's very true, especially for my team. My team is primarily the fundraising and media teams are primarily girls, which is really wonderful. It's like mostly girls. It's a solid like 85%. But what we see in the statistics is this is not the case. Media and fundraising is not 85%. It's 35 to 40%. So in a lot of these teams, guys are actually half or more, often more. Yeah, and so I totally agree. I think that especially like for teams like mine that might already have girls on the team, but maybe get pushed to more of those non-STEM fields, I think that is a very great technique to try to free it up a little bit and have guys try some fundraising and like seeing how important that is, and also being an integral part of outreach and having girls make sure they know how to solder and how to do some basic stuff because
I have
well,
experience with a girl who was a couple years ago, I'm not sure what she was doing, marketing, outreach, team secretary kind of
right.
stuff. And she had a miserable year. And finally, at the end of the year, somebody said, have you tried doing something else? And she says, I have 3 years of experience welding. And I said, please, what can you do?
Well, yeah, and often girls, just like everyone else, if they don't know a skill, they don't know that skill, and so it's hard to become a build person in that skill. But as we look in First Robotics, that's totally not the case. You can come in with zero skills and learn how to weld, learn how to solder, learn how to program very quickly. Like that's the ethos of First is to have a skill set. And so bringing girls in and saying you don't have to know anything about this sub team. That's how everyone is, and getting those confidence levels up.
Make that a big part of the message.
Yeah, might be a really great technique as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one action that my team takes, however counterintuitive it might be, we actually talk to our team members, since again we are an all-girl team, and we educate them on the kind of situations that they may come into with predominantly male teams outside of our own team that have never seen this kind of female involvement in First. We actually had someone come to us and approach us and ask us how we carried our robot if we're all girls, which at first it may seem really shocking that like how do you carry a robot, you're all girls with no muscle. But then we realized that he had never actually seen girls carrying a robot. And so it wasn't a question
Yeah.
of are you capable? It was a question of I've never seen this before, how does it work? And so we actually educate our members on how to be respectful in those situations and educate without reacting with offense to those
Right.
kinds of comments, and to actually try to spread information instead of just reacting.
Right, and I think that transcends all girls teams. Like, there's a lot of, like, that is really wonderful for girls on any team, but also the flip side for the guys to also be very aware of those kinds of comments. Yeah. We can take a few more, and then we're gonna wrap up. Yeah, yeah. Sure. I think that is shown kind of in that sub team breakdown. So on the average team, that's what it looks like. Yeah. Um, in terms of individual teams, it was kind of interesting to look at that. Again, it didn't really change by size of team. So teams that had a lot of people, those statistics weren't that different. Yeah. Do you want to clarify your question? I think I'm not really sure. Oh, if I had a pie chart, I could make one. I'm pretty creative. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have one, but you can see that the bigger slices of pie would be in media, and the smaller slices of pie would be in programming. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, interesting. I think if your assumption was correct, and like often girls were pushed to this pushed to media and fundraising, I think you'd see on the sub team breakdown that there was just like girls were more in those, and then they would be more underrepresented in build. But there actually are that percentage of, I think it was like 33 or ish, maybe even no, probably less. It was probably like 24% girls in build. So there are girls in build. Yeah, I can talk to you later more because I have more information on that. Um, yeah, that I'd love to share. Yeah. Hmm. Right. Right. And that's where mentor trainings are the first step, and I think that's going to create a culture to be like role models for other guys on the team. But I totally agree with you. There is that culture does exist of guys on the team that sometimes aren't aware of the comments that there's or they are saying comments that aren't helpful to girls. Right. No, and I definitely agree.
What you need to do is you need to find a way of not becoming, go on offense, right? That's hard. It's very hard when you see somebody else doing that. But if you end up creating somebody else that intends, is not gonna, it doesn't help. And so I think that, and these are, I think the right way to approach it is the same thing, you know, try and
It's kind of interesting because often, like, I've tried to say those things to some of guys that I've met on my team and say, that's not cool, that's not okay. And sometimes it's hard not to go on the offense because I have some emotion behind my words. I have like, sexism is a problem and affects me, and I want to share that with people. And that is hard, to not be on the offenses, because there is emotion involved with that. And that's why it's hard and almost a cop-out to me, but also something really strong, to say that having male advocates is super important, because if they see it, they can help other guys see it also, in a way that I want to express very badly, but isn't helpful. Yeah. I'm gonna take this question and then we're gonna wrap up. Oh, cool. One more comment and then we're gonna wrap up. And then if you want to come down and talk to me or sign up to get more information, there's gonna be like a Facebook page. It's really wonderful. Yeah, for sure do that. All right, one more comment.
Yeah, I think it's also worth like addressing it explicitly in a general setting, like pointing out like specific enough that it's real to the people that have been involved. Like saying like this has happened on the team, like to show everyone. Because then it's like, oh, this is like close enough that it actually could be me or could be something that I do in the future or something like out in the future, but it's also not like specifically targeting that person.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. All right. So in conclusion, you have the power to do this in your region. You have the power to make a girls' gen competition. You have the power to use some of those recruiting strategies to get more girls on your team. And I'm just so excited for the future. I'm still a junior. I'm excited for my senior year to see even more girls in FIRST Robotics. Thank you all for coming.